Sneb, are we doing anything to try and inspire the competitive mindset in Guild Wars 2 and hopefully make people excited to try raiding and excited to try and win something and therefore improve the raid scene as a whole? Is there anything like that you can think of?
Okay, so are we actually going to talk about competition, or are we just going to like meme
Oh yeah,
around
I mean, we were memeing around, but no, we are actually going to talk about competition because it's an important topic. You know, it's something that we do a lot of, right? There's a lot of competitions. You know, historically, that's been a big part of the content that I think, you know, we've done on stream, either raid tournaments, PvP tournaments, GVG stuff, beetle racing. And I do really think competition is an important thing in games. And I think this is the point that I want to hit on first. I'm curious what you think of this. I think there's a bit of a misconception that competition is only for the sweatiest of sweatiest players. And I don't think that's true.
That is a big misconception.
I think competition is for everyone, right? And being competitive doesn't mean being super, super hyper tryhard. It can just mean, oh, you know, I want to try and kill this boss a little bit quicker, right? Oh, I want to improve my rating in PvP a little bit. I want to get to platinum in PvP. Or like, oh, you know, I want to try a GVG, right? And try to play that, right? Like, that's what competition is. And I think it's one of the most important things for enjoying the game and having fun, right? And finding joy in improvement and accomplishing a goal is competition. You know, in some sense, even setting a goal and then reaching that goal is just a way of self-competing, right? You're competing against yourself to accomplish something. I think it's incredibly important. I think it's awesome. And that's why I run so many events. Like the Ready Check Cup, in fact.
Yeah. I think it's very similar. Have you ever gone on like a 5K run or something?
Unfortunately, yes. Yeah.
I really enjoy
You don't want to
running,
see that.
So I like to go in those things. But when you go there, you look around and there's all different kinds of people. There's you know, a mom pushing her kid in a stroller. There's, you know, some 16-year-old that's on their high school track team or whatever. You've got all different levels of competitor there. They don't all necessarily, they're competing against each other, but at the same time, they're kind of not. At the end of the day, maybe it matters to some of them whether they were first, second, or third, but some of them are just there to just do better than the last time they did that same run, or to just be there and do better every time they go out. I don't know. And I think that having those types of events where people can just compete for the sake of competing, even if they're not the highest level, even if they're not running 5K in 18 minutes or something, I think that's important. I think it's important to have goals and to try to be a little bit better each time. That's what having a growth mindset is.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that's not for everybody, but I think a healthy scene has some level of, hey, let's see if we can do this a little bit better this time.
Exactly. Yeah. I think it's super important, and it's why we're running these tournaments that are supposed to be a little bit more entry level, because we want to kind of get people on this path, right? Like, get people on the path of competition, getting into that growth mindset, getting into that improvement mindset. Because I think that you know, when we talk about improvement, I think quite a valid question is, well, why would I improve? Like, what's the point? Like, why would I even bother to do that? Right? And I think that's a good question. I think that's a question that, you know, you have to kind of ask yourself sometimes is, what's my goal? Right? And I think competition is a really good way to essentially create that goal. Yeah. Oh yeah, go ahead.
But how do you answer that question?
Yeah.
So somebody says, what's the point of competing? What do you say?
Yeah. The point of competing?
The point of improvement, rather.
The point of improvement? I mean, the point of improvement, I think, is because it's enjoyable to improve at something. I think having mastery, being good at something, and I think, you know, weirdly enough, it comes down to a classic MMO thing, is progression, right? Like, competition and self-improvement and goal setting is progression. It's another form of progression. And that's why, that's what we're all here for. We're here to see the number go up, right? And that's exactly what competition is, in my opinion.
I actually really struggle to understand, and I would invite people in the YouTube comments or in the Twitch chat here to try to explain this to me. Why would you not want to do a little bit better than last time? I kind of don't get it.
Yeah.
You know, and what I mean is, why would you intentionally not want to do just a little bit better? You know, just do your best. This isn't to say you have to go and become an elite level gamer or anything, or at anything really. But I have a really hard time understanding not wanting to just try a little bit to improve.
Well, I mean, I think that's... I don't know. I think it depends what your goals are, right? Like, if you just want to get the items, then just playing good enough is probably all right, right? But I think, you know, when it comes to being more efficient, you might want to be more efficient. You want to kill things quicker. You want to have more access. And I think this is something that really gets missed out, actually, when it comes to improvement, is that improving is utility, actually, right? Like, if you learn Guild Wars 2 and you have some degree of mastery about the game and you do play a little bit competitively, that actually gives you access to more things, right? That means that you're going to be able to clear harder content and get more rewards. It means that you're going to be able to clear content faster and more consistently, right? So you can access more things and have, you know, more time to spend on other stuff. It means that you might win more in PvP, right? So again, you're going to get more loot by doing that. Like, being good is, you know, if you practice and you learn the game, then you're going to have an easier time learning a new build or adapting to the meta when the meta shifts or something like that. Like, these are all really powerful, useful things to have access to. But I think most importantly, you know, we're missing the main point here. And the main point is that the game is fun, right? And I think that when you view the game as only exactly what it is, so you only look at the mechanics, the items you get out of it, right? The bosses, the time gates, the gold. I think that eventually that runs out of juice, right? You've run out of content, essentially. But when it comes to playing the game with your friends, playing the game to get better at it, trying a new challenge, like setting a goal for yourself, these are things that can really enhance your enjoyment of the game, even if you aren't bored of it yet, or it can help you continue to enjoy the game, you know, after you've basically beaten all of it, right? I think that's a classic thing, right, is that, you know, you beat the game, there's something else to do, and then you've run out of stuff to do, and then the game no longer is fun anymore. But if you have this thing that's slightly external to the game itself, which is competition, or maybe, you know, it being a social experience, and funnily enough, like, I think social experience and competitive play really go hand in hand. I think you'd be pretty hard pushed to find a competitive environment that doesn't at least end up social in some sense. But I think it's really powerful for allowing you to enjoy the game. You know, maybe that's bad. You know, it prevents you from quitting. It means you're hard stuck. You know, if you start playing competitively, you'll never be free of Guild Wars 2. You can't get out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. For me, I just enjoy helping my team.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like if I'm not doing my best and I'm not trying to improve a little bit, that no matter who I'm playing with, if it's 9 random people from the LFG, or if it's 9 people from my guild, or if it's the people that I regularly team up with, it doesn't really matter who it is. I think it's kind of unfair to them, in a sense, to not do my best, or to not try to learn something new, or to not try to improve.
For sure, yeah. You know, it's, you know, if you are in a group activity, then you want to do your best. I think that's definitely true. You want to go that extra mile to lock that in. And I do think this is a mindset that I want to encourage in the Guild Wars 2 community. Because you can absolutely have a massive impact on your team. And I think perhaps players don't know this, but you can be unbelievably impactful. A single player, you might go, oh, I'm only 1 player out of 10. What does it matter? You can be a huge difference. If you're playing a support or a DPS, or you're handling a certain mechanic, it's always a huge deal. If there's one player who, like, really knows what they're doing and they're going all out. It's not always going to work out perfectly, right? You know, you can't carry everything, okay? Some games you're going to lose. There's no way around that. But I think it's something that people underestimate. And I think that a lot of players do kind of fall into this slightly resigned attitude, right? I'm sure you've seen this in pug groups where it's like, well, you know, why even bother? Why even try? And you definitely see this in ranked PvP, right? Where players will give up very early on, like, oh, why even bother? Why even bother to continue? It's a very anti-competitive mindset. And I do think that an anti-competitive mindset, or it does cause a lot of problems. I think it causes a lot of problems in the pug raid scene. I think it causes a lot of problems in PvP for sure, with the attitude, the sentiment towards player versus player, and all that kind of stuff, right? Even in world versus world, I think that anti-competitive mindsets tend to kind of cause a bit of a decay of the community. Because this is something that, I think this might be a hot take, Sneb. You maybe check me if I'm a hot take here. This is a little spicy maybe, but I really do think that online gaming communities are kind of built off the back of competition to an extent, right? Like the players who are setting the metagame and producing guides, producing content, right? And helping players learn. All of that is a pretty growth-oriented comparative mindset. Think about the mindset of a raid trainer, right? That's a huge growth mindset. That in essence is a competitive mindset. It is this, okay, here's the challenge, let's smash it. Let's destroy it, right? You know, of course, in a raid, you're competing against an AI, right? But ultimately, it's a very similar principle. What do you think of that? I do think that competition is necessary. We must encourage it.
Well, what I'm thinking about right now is how everyone is going to misinterpret competition.
Oh, dear. Oh, no.
Yeah, okay. Let's be very clear here. I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, when you say competition, you mean people being competitive even with just themselves.
Yes.
Not necessarily having to enter a tournament and compete against other players or even compete against the other people on your team, but simply just trying to do a little bit better each time. I think that people might get a little bit stuck on that because it's one thing to, well, first, to go back to what you said, yes, I actually think that having people who are inherently a little bit competitive, competing with each other and trying to outdo each other, trying to hit the highest benchmark is kind of a healthy foundation for any community. I mean, look at things like Super Mario 64 and the speedrunning community there. The reason that game is so alive on things like YouTube and Twitch and stuff is because, well, there's a really healthy competitive foundation. They just want to play the game at the highest level possible, and they find cool tricks, and people really enjoy that. Even the people that aren't necessarily at the highest level, they watch that and they can appreciate it. So I think there is something to that. It's kind of important to have people that are trying to push boundaries and trying to get better and trying to find new things all the time so that they can share that information eventually with others and help them.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think it really helps to build that excitement, that engagement in the community, right? I think it gives players a reason to care. Like, that is the big thing about competition, I think, or one of the big things, is that it gives players a reason to be invested, yes. Right? Like, yes. And a lot of the time, I think this is one of the issues that Guild Wars 2 faces. I think that Guild Wars 2 players don't feel very invested in the game. I feel like I've finally been able to express this correctly. You know, whenever I see Guild Wars 2, it feels very mushy, right? It's like, oh yeah, it's a great game, right? Yeah, it's my second game, you know. It's a great game, it's fun, I love it, right? And then it's like, oh yeah, but I'm playing this game, I'm maining this game, right? And I think that comes down to a lack of investment, right? And I think perhaps the game, in a way, lacks reasons for people to invest in the game. And I think a big part of that does come from the community, right? A huge part of that is the community making it exciting, either through social stuff with like in-game guilds or through more competitive means. And that's why I'm just incredibly excited about the Ready Check Cup. I think we actually might want to talk about that. Do you want to talk about that a little bit, Sneb? Yeah, what? Yeah. What, do you like that segue, dude? You don't like my segue? I mean, what are you doing? Are you flaming me?
Yeah, no, I'm flaming you for sure. I was just going to, I want to add one thing before we talk about the Ready Check Cup.
Let's do it.
Okay, apathy is a big problem in Guild Wars 2. Okay. And this is just my perspective and my experience, so take it maybe with a grain of salt. But I see a lot of pickup groups just completely dissolve. Okay. After, you know, they'll do a few attempts at the boss, and then they just give up.
Yep.
Here's what I think is going on. You have a couple players that are severely underperforming. maybe they're not doing mechanics. Maybe they don't know the mechanics that well. Maybe they don't know their build that well. Maybe they don't have like a proper build or the proper gear or whatever. But the issue isn't that that's where they're at necessarily. It's that they don't care about changing it. Or maybe they don't know to change it. And so if you're an experienced player in a group where you have a few people that are doing this and it's wiping the group over and over again, rather than try to do anything about it, a lot of them just go, this is completely hopeless. Because nobody's trying to do anything different, or nobody's communicating, and so I think a lot of people are just like, whatever, I'll just try to get a different group then. And I think that's really quite sad, because if people were just a little bit more competitive with themselves, or maybe conscious about their impact and how their impact affects the other people on their team, I think we'd see a lot more of a pugging culture. We'd see a lot more activity there and success. But it's because people seem to not care very much about that improvement that people flock to things like statics, right? Because they want to be around other people. That you don't have to be the best player in the world, but you have to want to improve. And if you want to improve, other people will help you. They'll flock to help you. What do you think about that?
I think that's absolutely right. And I think that, yeah, this is a huge reason on why the pug culture really isn't there. And it's why people make statics. Because at the end of the day, people want to play with players who have the same mindset, right? Or at least a similar mindset, not the identical mindset, but, a mindset that is similar. And, with people that they have things in common with. And
I heard this thing on Reddit the other day, I think. It was, maybe it was Reddit. I don't remember where I read it exactly, but it was, they were trying to express that they think that all the veteran players should just leave and go to their own like private server or something, so that the players who aren't very good can all play together. Yeah. I read that and I was like, I don't get it, because I don't really understand how that would change anything. The unfortunate part is that the kind of person who is more likely to take the leadership role, is a more veteran player who has experience with these things. And it turns out that if you have the commander tag, you get to make the rules for your group. You may not like those rules. There are plenty of commander's rules that I really don't like. But, as long as they're abiding by sort of the terms of service and whatever, it's their group, their rules, and you have to respect that. So if your experience level or your impact or whatever isn't enough to make it into their group, yeah, you can feel bad about that, and obviously that kind of sucks. But it just is what it is. That's just how it is, right? They set the rules, they set the requirements. And I don't believe there's anything inherently evil about wanting to play with other people who have similar goals, value systems, whatever. I don't know. I've always thought that's just part of being on a team.
Yeah.
So
it's certainly true. Yeah. I mean, it kind of goes back to the whole mentality thing, right? I think it's fun. It's a lot more fun when you're playing with people who are on the same page. Right, playing with people who have different goals, different mindsets is never enjoyable, right? In the same, if, for example, if you're in a training group and someone comes in and says, "Oh, let's do this really try-hard strategy," that's not going to be a good time, right? Like that's kind of stupid, right? But in the same way, it does go the other way, right? If this one group says, "Okay, we really want to improve at this, we want to get this down, we want to sort this out," right? And then someone doesn't want to play ball, then that's not exactly much fun either. So you got to watch out. Where are you going with that? Where are you? What was the?
Well, I don't know. I've been reading a lot of this sentiment that just further divides veteran players and newer players, and I just think that's really sad. And some of the things that are being suggested for veteran players to do, I just kind of look at it and I go, what? It's just a little odd, Yeah. Look, as a player who's played the game since the beta, I love the game. I want to help players, but at the same time, the players have to help themselves. I don't want to facilitate. How do I express this? I think it's important to teach people to fish. You know, the old teach a person to fish and you feed them for a lifetime thing. I don't want to just play with players and carry them through stuff and then they learn nothing and they just go into the next group and it's the same result every time. If I'm going to try to have an impact, my impact is going to be to really sit down and help somebody learn what the heck they're doing. But I think, and I could be very incorrect about this, but some of the things that I read are kind of like, well, you just shouldn't care and you should just take the people anyways and just sort of pull them through. And I think, okay, well, you know, sometimes, sure, I think that's fine, but I don't think that really fixes anything or solves the problem. I think that just gives immediate results with zero effort. And that isn't a teaching moment of any kind. It doesn't support anyone's growth or development. And if you want the scene to grow, you need to go and help players. So I feel like there's always this stalemate between these two factions. There's always the group of veterans that are like, players just don't want to learn. And then there are the new players that are like, veterans just don't want to teach me. And then they just sit on these different sides of the gym and stare at each other. And they're like, you don't want to teach me. Well, you don't want to learn. And then they just keep repeating that over and over again.
I think it's because both sides...
But we don't really get anywhere.
It's probably because both sides need to compromise on some degree. And nobody likes compromise, right? That's the issue here, right? Is that nobody wants to budge an inch. It's going to be like, okay, well, you need to come and play exactly how we want it. Realistically, that never works, right? There's going to have to be a little bit give and take in a situation like this, I would say. But the problem is that it's quite difficult to do that. It's because the problem is that even having the conversation is really hard, right? You know, like in a lot of the previous Sneb times, you know, we'll say something like, oh, you know, if you're in a group, you should do your best, right? And actually, there are loads of great raiding communities that help people, and then the response will be stuff like, well, actually, okay, when I joined a raid, someone called me bad. That means all raiders are toxic. And stuff like, oh yeah, I heard Sneb talking about improvement. He's elitist. He's toxic. Right? It's a difficult conversation to have. Yeah. But I know, chat. People would, let's ask the chat. Let's ask the comments, in fact. Comments. How do we unify the Guild Wars 2 community? Okay? Right now, we are a house divided, Sneb. And a house divided cannot stand. Oh, no. That's true.
Sounded very biblical.
Yeah. That sounded a bit biblical. I think it's, it was either, I think it was a Lincoln paraphrase, actually, I think. But, but yeah. Close. There are 4 cannons on this.
It's actually a Bible verse.
Oh, really? Is it? Oh, shit. Oh, yeah, I actually had no idea.
Mark 3:25. If a house is divided against itself, it cannot stand.
I've been inspired by...
You're preaching.
Yeah, I am. Yeah. Sneb, are we doing anything to try and inspire the comparative mindset in Guild Wars 2 and hopefully make people excited to try raiding and excited to try and win something and therefore improve the raid scene as a whole? Is there anything like that you can think of?
Oh boy, you know, I just thought of this cup, the Ready Check cup.
Ooh. Tell me about it.
Well, we're doing a tournament December 17th. One day. Big gaming action. Anyone, well, we're barring the like really elite players who have a record, players who've already won a tournament, players who've been invited to a tournament. And our hope is to have some new blood. We're actually going to have some really talented teams that have played together a lot or teams that are fairly competitive because they meet all of our criteria. But the hope is that we have enough teams turn out that we can further segment so that we can have more and more tournaments that are even more maybe new raider friendly kind of thing.
Yep.
But we need the interest. So the idea is to just go and participate, just have some fun, get 10 people. Yeah, hey, you might not even have a team, but it turns out that there's actually a lot of people who are
free agents.
You know, yeah, they're free agents. They just want to drop in and play with some people, and I think that's pretty cool and pretty fun.
Yes.
So if you want to play, you can find some people. And there's going to be a whole bunch of what I'm calling door prizes, or like raffle prizes. So if you enter the tournament and you just participate in that one round, you have a chance at winning some pretty cool stuff. Including, I believe, I don't know if I have this 100% confirmed, but I believe that there's going to be a few art commissions thrown in there.
Ooh, that is big.
I think a few artists have donated like a piece of work to be raffled off. So I think that's pretty special because those are pretty valuable big prizes. We have some amazing artists in the Guild Wars 2 community. So
yes, it's a big deal. It is a big deal.
Yeah.
And, you know, this is...
Plus a bunch of gold and stuff.
Yeah, there's loads of stuff. Community hero. Oh, yes, gamers. And
yeah, community hero for the top 2 teams. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and this is kind of part of a greater initiative that me and Sneb are hoping to get going. Sneb's been doing a lot of work helping me figure out how to make tournaments more regular. One of the biggest issues with competition in Guild Wars 2, it's been a lack of consistency, right? There haven't been enough events, and I think that leads to a very desperate situation where everyone's like, it's the last one, we've got to play it, right? Which is never ideal, I think. And this is a really big thing that we want to try and correct. We want to create a universe where every single player feels like there's something they can compete in, right? There is a tournament that is actually for them, as it were, right? Which I think is actually a pretty rare thing a lot of the time in Guild Wars 2. You know, a lot of competition tends to be pretty top-heavy, where only like really, really sweaty teams like have an opportunity to win or like a realistic prospect of winning, right? Because obviously, you know, like the teams that have been playing for ages, for years and years and years, they obviously are very, very strong and have pretty significant advantages when it comes to actually winning, right? You know, you'd have to put in a huge amount of work to actually catch up with some of these top teams. So our goal is to create multiple layers of competition that all different player experience levels will be competitive in, and will have a realistic chance of working towards and improving, right? Not necessarily, oh, you know, if you enter the first time, you're going to win instantly. No, that isn't the goal. The goal is to say, oh, it's actually within reach. We want everyone to have some type of competition in reach, right? To inspire players to improve their gameplay, practice, and then, of course, ultimately, hopefully make the scene thriving and more exciting than ever before. With no fermented syrup.
I feel very strongly that people just need a place where they can compete against people with similar skill level. I think that's really what we're struggling with these kind of tournaments. Like you said consistency, and that's also true. But the fact that we put out one tournament every once in a while, and it's only the best players, so you see pretty much the same teams every single time. There's very little way to sort of break into that or to compete and have fun, but also actually compete. If you and I go and we play StarCraft 2 and we 2v2 versus Hardstuck and Pig, well, what do you think is going to happen?
It's not going to be a good time.
I'm going to cancel my cannons. We're going to lose. So,
gonna rage quit.
Yeah, I will rage quit immediately after canceling the cannons. So it's not really what I'm trying to get at. Is it's not really competition.
Yeah, it's not competitive.
Yeah, it's not competitive. Like, sure, you're trying, you're competing, but it's not even close. And so you need to have places where people can sort of battle against the people that are similar to them in skill. And that's the hope with segmenting. Now, this first tournament, this first Ready Check Cup, I think that we're going to have quite a wide range of skill level. I think it's going to be quite wide. And we did that on purpose, right? Because we just weren't sure if the raid scene even still existed to an extent. We wanted to know who was going to compete and, you know, what level of player we were going to get. We just kind of opened it up pretty wide. But I think what we've already learned is that there is a bunch of people that really want to compete against people that it will actually be competitive. And that's cool. So I think we can do more and segment more.
Exactly.
The Ready Check Cup is the first test at this, the first crack at it.
Yeah, and I think the consistency thing is really important here. because I want, a team that plays, for example, to, obviously only one team wins, right? That's the nature of competition. But I want the teams that are runners-up, are, placed all the way through, right, the tournament, to think, oh, that was kind of fun. Let's try again. Let's stick together as a team and improve and enter the next one. And that's why consistency is so important. In fact, we're so committed to this, we're going to try and announce the month of the next one, because we do plan on running this regularly. We've committed. We're in on this, right? We're going to go big. And as a result of that, right, we want the teams that play to continue to stay together, to build communities, to build the scene up, and, hopefully come back and have another crack at it, and see if they can do even better, right? That's going to be the goal. And, of course, eventually move up through the levels of competition. The Ready Check Cup is going to be the entry point for raids, but we'll probably have an additional 2 other layers, right, for a mid-level tournament and then a high-level tournament after that as well. And the goal would be that teams would obviously keep trying and keep playing, and then once they start winning and are very competitive and very strong within within the Raid Check Cup, they'll move on to the next one and then move on to the next one after that. And with any luck, this type of layering should hopefully really encourage people to compete and to stick together as a team, because we want to lower the barrier to entry for competitive play, but also we want to reduce the distance between being an entry-level player and winning something, right? Like, at the end of the day, a key part of competition, which we just kind of alluded to, is that you need to be able to win, right? The match isn't really competitive if one side is so much stronger than the other, right? So it's really important to us that all players and all teams feel like they actually have the ability, the capacity, right? Like the amount of time they have available to play the game, to improve. They can actually take that time and win something with it.
Yeah, it's because right now I think people kind of feel like, they're the rec team. They're like the local rec team heroes of the local gym or whatever, and then they're going to play against the national team, and they have no hope. And if there's no hope, the thought is, well, why kind of bother? And you could try to make the argument, oh, well, it's for fun. But nobody likes to go in knowing that their chance of winning is like 0%. Mm-hmm. It just kind of ruins the vibe. So if they feel like even if they're not favored, if there's still a chance, it makes it fun. It makes it competitive.
Exactly. And that's important. We need to bring that back in the game. I genuinely believe it would be a huge deal for the raid scene, right? Because if players feel like they can win, then I think that in turn makes players excited to play the game. That means they're going to be more likely to kind of get involved with the community and help out and train, right? Train players, help players learn the game, pug more, play more in general, and just have that investment and excitement. That's what's been missing for me in Guild Wars 2 Sneb for the past kind of few years. I haven't felt the energy, and I want to bring the energy back. We're going to bring the energy back. Enter the tournament. Do it. Hardstuck.gg/ready. I think that's
Isn't it Ready
great.
Check?
Is it
It's Ready Check? I think so.
Is. You're correct, Sneb. You are correct. I admit that. That is correct. That works too. I'm ready to feed. How do you feel about people being ready to feed?
I think that's good. I like that.
Yeah. A little bit of feeding never hurt anyone.
Not at all.
Yeah.
You're fine.
Yeah. I'm actually really excited to push it forwards, and I hope to run a lot of events like this down the line, and hopefully we can make a difference, right? In addition to all the other stuff that we're trying to get done too, right? Providing more resources, like helping people take up leadership positions, all that kind of good stuff. But yeah, I mean, I guess that's kind of about it, huh? It's charity. Yeah, it's the Ready Check Cup. It's for, entry-level raiding competition. We want to reinvigorate the scene. Competition makes the scene exciting. It's going to be great. I'm going to be there. Me and Sneb are going to commentate. So, we'll watch your gameplay. It's going to be pretty sick.
You get to hear me screaming into the mic about some exciting moments. That's going to be good. Look, on a personal note, I am actually so excited to do this because I've always wanted to commentate something like this. I will probably be just giddy the whole time.
Yeah.
It's going to be so much fun.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm really jazzed about it. I think it's going to be a ton of fun.
Yes. Yes! And stay tuned for a lot more. Sneb has worked his magic. With any luck, we should be able to actually very consistently run competitive events like this. And as long as we have interest, we will keep doing it.